So what if I told you that the buildings of ancient Greece aren't at all what they seem? That they're actually hiding a secret code, right there in plain sight. It's this language of stone that tells an incredible story of gods, people, and a wild philosophy of perfection. Today, you and we're gonna crack that code. I mean, we've all seen images like this, right? The Parthenon. It's the symbol of classical civilization, the very foundation of Western architecture. But what if I told you that its perfection is actually built on a massive optical illusion? That there isn't a single, truly straight line in the entire thing? And really, at its core, it's just this, isn't it? A strong, elegant stone column. Its whole job is to hold up a roof. It's just a piece of engineering. Or is it? See, this is where the code really begins, because for the ancient Greeks, this was never just some inert piece of stone and marble. No, they saw a much deeper symbolism, a kind of living essence in every single piece they carved. What if that column is specifically designed to represent a human body? Now that is the first key to cracking this whole code. The Greeks weren't just building structures, they were literally sculpting humanity into their architecture. So how in the world did they do it? Well, it all starts with what architects call the orders. But here's the trick. Don't think of them as just different styles. You got to think of them as different types of people. Just take a look at this. On the left, you've got the Doric order. It's sturdy, it's powerful, and it's simple. It doesn't even have a base. It's just pure strength rising right up from the floor, modeled directly on the ideal male form. Then, look over on the right. You have the Ionic. It's more slender, more graceful, with these really cool decorative scrolls at the top called volutes, and those are meant to look like flowing hair. This one was inspired by the proportions of a woman. You heard me right. They were literally building with gendered bodies. And then you have the Corinthian order, the most elaborate of all three. Now this one, it actually moves beyond the human form for its inspiration and draws from the natural world. Its design is based on the acanthus plant, which gives it this really organic, leafy feel. This connection to nature, plus its association with funeral rites, made it the most ornate and, you could say, the most sacred style in their whole architectural language. And okay, this is where the code gets even more explicit, because the Greeks took this whole concept from metaphorical to, well, breathtakingly literal. They didn't just model columns after people, they carved people to be the columns. Everybody meet the Caryatid. These are these stunning sculptures of women that completely take the place of a traditional column, literally holding the weight of the temple roof right on their heads. The most famous ones, you can still see them on the Erechtheion Temple on the Acropolis in Athens. But this raises a really powerful question. What does this actually symbolize? I mean, are these figures being honored, their strength and grace celebrated by giving them this super important role? Or is it a depiction of a burden, a story of enslavement, where women are forced to bear the weight of the structure for all of eternity? The Greeks, well, they kind of left the answer intentionally ambiguous. Now, this code, it goes way beyond just individual buildings. Let's zoom out for a second, because this whole philosophy of order and human proportion, it shaped the entire city. And what they created was an urban environment that was, in a lot of ways, just shockingly modern. A grid of straight streets that intersect at right angles. Does that sound familiar? I mean, think of modern cities like New York. The Greeks invented it over 2,400 years ago. It's called the Hippodamian Plan, and it was a totally revolutionary way to bring a democratic sense of logic and order to city life. And the logic behind it was so simple, but at the same time, philosophically profound. First, you lay out the grid. Second, you create these uniform blocks. And third, you strategically place public and private life right within that grid. It was efficient, and in its own way, a really egalitarian approach to organizing a city, giving structure and a sense of equality to the whole urban space. So what was at the heart of this super organized grid? Well, it was a central public space where Greeks shopped, they debated politics, they exercised, and they socialized. And you know what? Its function might seem incredibly familiar. Welcome to the Agora. This was the city's absolute beating heart. It wasn't just a marketplace, it was the hub for everything. I want you to imagine a town square, a business district, a community center, and a political stage, all rolled into one giant open-air space. And lining the Agora, you would almost always find the Stoa. And this thing, it brilliantly illustrates their ingenuity. A stoa is basically a long, covered public walkway with columns. It offered shelter from the blazing Greek sun and the winter rain, which meant business and social life could just keep on going, no matter what the weather was doing. It was, for all intents and purposes, the world's first covered shopping mall and public arcade. But public life was so much more than just commerce. The Greeks took this incredibly holistic approach, designing spaces for every single aspect of civic life. You had the Gymnasium, which was a place not just for athletics, but also for training the mind through philosophical debate. You had the Bouleuterion, which was basically their city council hall. And of course, the theater, for entertainment and huge civic festivals. And speaking of theaters, we have to talk about the theater of Epidaurus. It had a capacity of 14,000 people. Yeah, 14,000. But that is not the most incredible part. The acoustics are so perfect, so mathematically precise, that someone sitting in the very last row can hear a coin drop on stage. No microphones, no amplifiers, just pure architectural genius. So, this brings us to the final piece of the code, the why. Why this obsession with proportion, with order, with mathematical precision in everything from a single column to an entire city block? Well, it all comes down to a core philosophy. This right here, this is the key. You see, they didn't see a temple as just a building you go inside. For the Greeks, the temple itself was a monumental piece of art, a perfect object placed carefully in the natural world, meant to be admired from the outside. These were their guiding principles. Everything they built had to have absolute clarity, a solid defined structure. All of its parts had to exist in perfect mathematical proportion to create this harmonious whole. It was all governed by a logical order, and it was all designed to be viewed as a perfect sculpture from any perspective. So when you put all these pieces together, the human-inspired columns, the logical cities, the philosophy of perfection, you start to realize they were doing way more than just building. They were creating a blueprint for an ideal world, a physical manifestation of all their values. And that blueprint, it was so powerful that we are still using it today. Seriously, think about the columned facades of our banks and our government buildings, or the tiered seating of our sports stadiums, the grid layouts of our cities. Their code is written all around us. So the next time you walk past a classical-looking building, don't just see stone, look for the code. Ask yourself, is that a Doric mantel or an Ionic woman? Is that a sculpture in the landscape? Now that you know the language, you're going to start seeing these secrets absolutely everywhere.